In the grand, deafening theater of the Great War, amidst the ceaseless thunder of artillery and the anguished cries of men, some stories were never shouted from the front lines. They were whispered in the profound silence that followed, carried on the wind across fields of mud and memory. This is one such story. It begins not with the dramatic bang of a rifle, but with a quiet, almost imperceptible cessation. A pen laid down for the final time, a letter left unwritten, a promise of correspondence broken by fate. No one could mark the exact moment her letters stopped arriving at the small family home. In the pervasive chaos of a world tearing itself apart, silence from a loved one was a heavy but tragically common burden. A delayed message, a lost mailbag, a censor's heavy hand, these were the hopeful, desperate explanations families clung to like life rafts. Disappearance, however, was a different kind of void. It was a story without an end, a question left hanging in the heavy air for a lifetime, a wound that could never truly heal. Our story is not about the celebrated heroes who charged into the barbed wire and machine gun fire of no man's land. It is about those who held the fragile line behind them, armed not with bayonets, but with bandages, morphine, and an unyielding resolve. It is the story of a young nurse, one of thousands who answered the call, believing their duty was a temporary, noble detour from the lives they had planned. She came from a small, quiet town, a place of predictable seasons and familiar faces, with a future neatly and hopefully mapped out. A return home to open arms, a family of her own, a long life lived in the familiar, gentle comfort of peace. When she packed her bags for the shores of France, she packed light, as if to tempt fate into a swift conclusion. A few starched uniforms, a worn photograph of her smiling family, and a thick stack of stationery to bridge the vast, uncertain distance. The war, everyone optimistically said, would surely be over by Christmas. Her early letters home were masterpieces of curated calm, carefully constructed to soothe the worries of those she loved. She wrote with eloquent detail of the French countryside's surprising beauty, the simple camaraderie shared with the other nurses over weak tea, and the incredible resilience of the human spirit she witnessed daily. She deliberately omitted the haunting, inescapable details, the ceaseless earth-shaking drone of distant artillery that became the constant, unnerving soundtrack to their lives. The pervasive, cloying scent of antiseptic that could never quite mask the metallic smell of blood and death. The sheer, overwhelming, and unending tide of broken bodies that flowed through their field hospital, day and night. With every letter, she built a wall of gentle, reassuring words to protect her family from the visceral horrors she witnessed, assuring them she was safe, that she was making a difference, that she would be home soon. The field hospital was an island of frantic, desperate life in a vast sea of destruction. It was never, ever quiet. Every hour the mud-caked ambulances would lurch to a stop, delivering their terrible cargo of wounded. The air within the tents was thick and heavy with the moans of the suffering, the sharp, urgent commands of the surgeons working in impossible conditions, and the quiet, steady whispers of the nurses offering what little comfort they could. She quickly learned to measure time not in the turning of days on a calendar, which had lost all meaning, but in the number of lives that passed through her weary hands. Some she helped save, their grateful eyes a small victory against the darkness. Some she could only offer a moment of peace, a hand to hold, before they slipped away into the eternal quiet. She worked until her feet were swollen and her mind was numb with fatigue, fueled by a desperate, burning sense of purpose. She was no longer just a young woman from a small town. She had become a guardian, a keeper of flickering flames in a relentless, world-consuming storm. Then came the order that would irrevocably seal her fate. The front was collapsing, the enemy advancing with terrifying speed. The hospital, now dangerously exposed, was to be evacuated immediately. As the small staff and the walking wounded prepared for a hasty, chaotic retreat, she looked at the rows upon rows of men too gravely injured to be moved. Their eyes, filled with fear and a dawning horror, followed her every move. There were not enough hands, not enough stretchers, not enough time. To leave them was to condemn them to a lonely, certain death at the hands of the approaching enemy. In that heart-stopping moment, a decision was made, a choice between her own life and theirs. She, along with a handful of other courageous souls, would stay. In the final, frantic moments, she found a spare moment to write one last letter. The calm facade of her previous correspondence now completely gone, replaced by a stark, powerful, heartfelt promise. "There are too many who cannot be moved," she wrote, her handwriting rushed but clear. "I must stay. Do not worry for me. I will come home when this is over." It was a promise she desperately intended to keep, a final, defiant plea to a future she still hoped to see. The letter, a small, folded piece of paper against the enormity of the war, was sent off with a retreating ambulance driver, a final, fragile link to the world and the life she was leaving behind. Days later, the hospital was overrun and utterly destroyed in the brutal fighting that swept through the area. In the ensuing chaos of the retreat and the subsequent battles that raged for weeks, official records were lost, burned in fires, or simply never created in the first place. There was no official report of her death, no known grave where her family could lay flowers and mourn. Her story ended as it had begun, in a profound, aching silence. Her name was simply added to the endless, somber list of the missing, a single, sterile line in a massive ledger of loss, a ghost in the annals of history. She never went home. Her small town waited, her family hoped against hope, but her chair at the dinner table remained forever empty. Yet, because of her and the few who stayed behind, many soldiers did go home. They carried with them the memory of a nurse's gentle hands and unwavering courage in the face of unimaginable horror. History rarely builds grand monuments to those who save lives quietly and selflessly in the shadows of war, but we will not forget. We remember her